today. Ellie has agreed to give us a talk on the Unitarian Universalism. Church.
I just have a correction. John and I, it's John and Alyne.
Oh, it's both of you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's gonna start, so.
All right. So the reason this is happening is so that we will be more informed and have an opportunity to ask questions and then make a wise decision when we vote regarding joining this organization. And I'll let John and Alyne tell you what has transpired so far. Yes.
Okay, well, you want to pass some of those out? Since we've had the Baha'is and, you know, pass one, take it on there, and also the other groups, the Sikhs, come to us, we thought it'd be time to talk about the Unitarian Universalists and what that's like. So we'd like to give a small example of what a Unitarian service might look like. And this is by no means that you'll find this in all the Unitarian Church, but several of them will stick to this kind of thing. Do you have enough?
Plenty.
Okay. So the first thing that might happen is an opening song. So we thought we might start with this song. Do we have, everybody have a copy?
Almost.
All right.
Almost.
And this is a song you have to think of in caravan rhythm as you're riding along the caravan on top of the camels and so forth. And that's where a lot of these songs come from. So the song goes like this. I'll sing it through and then you can join the second time. Come, come, whoever you are, this caravan knows no despair. Come, come, wherever you are, this caravan knows no despair. Even though you have broken your vows, perhaps 10,000 times, come, come again. Want to try it? Come, come, whoever you are, this caravan knows no despair. Come, come, whoever you are, this caravan knows no despair. Even though you have broken your vows, perhaps 10,000 times, come, come again. This is from the Canadian Unitarian Association hymn book. So this is one of the things. These words come to us from Rumi way back then. In fact, it's if you go to his tomb, you'll see it right on the side, on one of the blessings of his tomb. Well, then the next thing that might happen, and we've already done it, is that you would light a chalice candle. That's like our situation of lighting the candles with a bit of an invocation. And then there would be a asking the congregation if you have needs or blessings or celebrations that you'd like to have that you could give to everybody. That would take up time at that spot. So now I'll give you a brief history of Unitarianism. This is one of these boring lectures where you got all the dates and numbers and the people, and you won't remember half of them, but I'll give them out anyway. Unless you want to have a test afterwards, we could do that.
That's the professor's. Professor Galm.
Well, this is it's quite a history, a fascinating history, and if you remember back in the 1500s when Martin Luther hammered the 97 Thesis on the door of the church, about 20 years later there was a monk by the name of Michael Servetus, who by the time the printing press was available and people could read the Bible for themselves, he went through the Bible and he noticed there was no place where it said that God exists in three persons, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. That's totally out of the Bible. There's nothing in the Bible that says that. So he says we shouldn't be Trinitarians, we should be Unitarians, because there's only one God and all through this. Well, gosh, that's what the Muslims were saying at that time. We couldn't have Christianity be like the Muslims, and so he was driven out of Spain where he was, and after his treatise was published and so forth, he had to go into hiding. And he was eventually captured in Calvin's house and in his district and put to the stake for being such a hypocrite. But the word got out. People started saying, well, maybe that might be the right way. And they went to Eastern Poland, and a bunch of them ended up in Transylvania, where you remember that's where Dracula and Frankenstein and all those people came out. Well, they embraced Unitarianism, so much so that the first king of Transylvania was a Unitarian. And one of his first decrees was that all religions should be equally celebrated. There should be no distinction between the religions. They should all be free to celebrate however they wish to do that. And that church that he started is still in existence today, from the 1500s. So it's still there. Jump ahead to 1680, and John Murray came from England and set up by a friend of his who was a farmer in a little chapel in the fellow's farm, and he started speaking to all the various farmers and kind of the people of the land. A very simple message that everybody had the same birthright, that they were all equal in the face of God. And so we got the idea of the universal appeal to all of the people. And so that came in from that wave.
And wasn't it that everybody was saved?
Yeah, everybody was saved and equal.
Yeah, no one went to hell.
That's right, that's the idea. The other branch came into the United States, and by 1710 they had taken over Harvard University as the head of the theological department there. So they were setting out the concept of Unitarianism as well in that type. And this gave rise in the 1800s to the whole transcendental movement of Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau and Margaret Fuller, who Henry David Thoreau, if you remember, went to jail protesting the Mexican war tax, and he was supported by the Unitarians in New England there, and they all came to his aid, and you see how that works. 1861, Olympia Brown was the first woman who was admitted to Harvard Divinity School, and she later became the first ordained woman minister by the Unitarians in New England. So we have quite a history of that going on. In 1900, in Canada, Icelandic settlers started settling in Manitoba, and they didn't like the Lutherans that were involved there, and some of the Mennonite Christian churches, and they started a Unitarian movement in Upper Manitoba. So it came in that time. In 1961, the Unitarians and the Universalists decided to merge, both of them being very liberal in their concepts, and they said, why don't we get together? And so the joke is, or the story is, Universalists think God is too good to damn them forever, and the Unitarians think they are too good to be damned forever. So you get this, the Unitarians coming from this high theological viewpoint of educated people, and the Universalists coming from the farmers and people of the land. and so forth. And so they were able to merge in this one group in 1961, which is kind of interesting, the late date. And the next year, the Canadian Unitarian Council was formed of all of the Unitarian Universal churches in Canada here, and so forth. So we have a history of social causes that run through this whole history, I think is the important thing. First of all, the freedom of religious thought in all the Unitarian churches. You have this wonderful freedom of being able to share your views with two other caveats. That the second one being that you use reason to develop your ideas and so forth. These aren't irrational ideas that come about. And the third thing is that you tolerate all the other various viewpoints that might come about at that time. So the freedom of expression of religious ideas, the unrestricted use of reason, and the tolerance that comes about. And coming closer to home, this is what I really thought was fascinating in this little book that was left by Joan Carolyn called Unitarians in Canada. I found out in 1959 there was a Unitarian fellowship here in Nelson that existed. And I think, Dan, you mentioned that you knew some of that, some of those folks. I'm sure it was associated with the university, Notre Dame University that was here, and some of the professors and that sort of thing, again, coming from that tradition. And then, even more interesting, in 1966, the Unitarian Wilderness Society purchased 160 acres by Fick Creek, and they would hold camps out there. And certain people have told me that they've seen signs there that says this is the property of the Universalist Unitarian Church there. And so I think it's another interesting thing to build on if if we do want to go from that side. So after these boring lectures, they found it's very good to sing another song. So I remember going to a service in Chicago where they had a really heady topic, and they had 2 or 3 University of Chicago professors expounding on these various concepts and so forth. And then in between, they had a gospel choir that we got all up and slapped our hands and everything like that, and then sat down and listened to a lot more of the theology. So that's kind of the universal and the Unitarian back and forth sort of thing. I think it still sits with it. So we'd like to sing this second song. You want to help?
Sure.
We'll sing it through, and this is written in 1981 by Carolyn McCabe, and it's become a real popular Unitarian song. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Want to try it? Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. So now we get the real stuff.
Oh, no.
Just
think that was real. You did the, what is it, you did the Unitarian.
Unitarian, you're gonna go with the Universalist side.
Well, because I'm a storyteller, I'm gonna tell you this story, and actually you probably have already heard this story. But, see what you hear this time. It's David and Goliath. And Goliath was this big brute of a professional soldier. I mean, and he was dressed head to toe in the newest, finest bronze helmet, armor. He had the best weapons, and he knew how to use them. He was skilled, and he was one of the best professional soldiers that existed. Besides, he was huge, and he was a bully. And he started goading the, Saul's people. He said, "Hey, come on. Get one of you guys. Come on up here. I'll tell you what. You win, just you and me, mano a mano, man on man." He said, "And you win the whole war and everything that goes with it. Come on. What are you scared? You scared of me? Huh?" And so, while David was delivering food to his soldier brothers, he overheard this giant's boasts. And he just kind of looked him over, and he saw something. He saw something very important. And he went up to King Saul and he said, "You know what, Saul?" He said, "I think I can defeat this giant." He said, "Oh, you're crazy. The guy is huge. You're a boy. You're not even a man yet, for Pete's sake." He said, "Please give me a chance." And he said, "Well, if you're going to do this, let me give you my own tunic." And so he put the tunic on, and here's armor. This is the best armor we've got, and the finest weapons we have. And David said, "Thank you," and he walked away, but he could barely walk. He never worn armor before. These weapons meant nothing to him. He'd never used them. So, in all respect, he just set them down, and he took off the armor, and he took off the tunic, and here he was just dressed in his own comfortable, simple garb. And then he went to the riverbed, and he picked up 5 smooth stones, and he put them in his pouch, and he went to meet the giant using the only weapon he had ever used. It was a slingshot. And the giant saw this boy coming towards him, and he started to laugh. What? You're sending a flea? What is it? This is an insult. Come on, what's this little boy gonna do? And David rushed up, took his sling, and one shot in a vulnerable spot where there was no armor, felled that giant right in the head, and down he went. And the battle was finished. Now that story was chosen by a Unitarian theologian, and he said David is the Unitarian Church. It is the one that tries to make its way in a world of giants. And so what are some of the giants that we have today? Can anybody tell me, do we have any giants today?
A giant pad.
The giant pad. Yeah, good. If I could find the
Giants, like as in beings?
not necessarily. Today's giants, corporations.
Corporation. Yeah.
The World Bank?
World Bank. So,
Yeah.
sorry, the corporations, the World Bank, apathy.
Catholic Church.
Catholic Church. Okay, some of the churches are.
Established church. Yeah.
Some of the established churches are giants. They're
The
huge.
Vatican.
The Vatican. Okay. And like I say, apathy, violence, wars. Those are all giants in our world today.
All boils down to money.
Well, money, the unequal distribution of money, the 1%, and and the thing about David is that he wasn't comfortable in all this paraphernalia, these things that he just weren't him. It just wasn't him. And so one of the things that the Unitarian Church has chosen to do is, okay, well, we're not gonna have creeds. We're not gonna have a top-down structure. The structure of the Unitarian Church is, it's congregation-based. In other words, you're the people, you know, the congregation is the one that says, well, this is what we wanna do, and it's the organization overhead say, well, how can we help you do that? And that's a very upside down from our modern worldview. You know, usually it's the authoritarians, the medical, the consumerism, all of that. That's what's been guiding our current Western world. And so, how do we turn that around? And one of the things I see Unitarian. You're such a good holder.
Yeah.
Such a good.
It's my job.
He's cute, isn't he cute? So, I'd like to take out of my pouch, I'm gonna take out my 5 stones.
Oh.
Are you a giant? Good thing you're not a giant. And, you know, stones don't have to be weapons. They can be tools, they can be paperweights, they can just be objects of beauty. And this stone is love. And love is open and it's accepting. And it looks to all of the world's the world religions, the world leaders, the world people, inspiration. It finds inspiration wherever it can. In a mountain, you know, you look at the mountain and you go, oh, you know, you look at the clouds, the skies, the lilacs. Today the lilacs are definitely there. And then the second stone that I have in my pocket is Quest for Truth. And this is just learning anything you can, everything you can, understanding more about yourself, understanding more about the world, understanding more about relationships, and whatever else you can think of. And then the third stone I have in my pocket is service. That means, you know, you can learn a lot, you can know a lot, but until you put it into, until you know what to do with that knowledge. How do you serve? What do you do? What else do I have on there? Compassion, and I can't read it. Generosity. We're generous. We want to give, you know, and so that's the other. And then action. And this is good things don't happen by themselves. You make them happen, and that's what action is about. And this one actually is one of my favorites, and it's one of my current favorites. And this is enough. You are enough, and you have enough. For whatever you need to do, wherever you are, whenever you are, let it be enough. And then my wish is for all of you to have enough. Enough rain, enough sunshine, enough beauty, enough love, just so you have enough. And then you can do what you need to, and you won't.
There's another enough, but we've had enough of the whatever, the other side was.
That's
We've had
true.
enough of the lies, the
Enough.
uneven, yeah.
Enough. We've had enough of that. Very good. Very good. And that to me sort of combines all the principles and 7 principles and the 6 sources of Unitarian Universalism. And I think most of us have seen the principles. You know, we've passed out papers before, but I'll just read them very briefly. The first principle is the inherent worth and dignity of every person. The second principle, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. And the third principle, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth within a congregation, within our group. A fourth principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. The fifth principle, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregation and society at large. And the sixth principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And the seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And then all of those principles are what are the foundation of Unitarian Universalism today. And the 6 sources from which they gain inspiration, direct experience, that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. That's one source. 2, words and deeds of prophetic women and men which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. And then the third is wisdom from the world's religions, which inspires us in our ethical and spiritual life. The fourth is Jewish and Christian teachings, which call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbors as ourselves. The fifth, humanist teachings, which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science and warn us against idolatries of the mind and spirit. And finally, spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions, which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature.
I might add that Joan Caroline, when she talked with us, said this is not a dogma. These are suggestions of how to base your individual community, congregation upon. But these are the threads that run through a lot of the Unitarian things. So it's not it's not carved in stone.
Right, because it's congregation based, because it's like, well, what do you want to do, and how can we help you do it? And if it resonates within the principles, and if you don't see it exactly the same way, it doesn't matter, because it's how you see it, because it's coming from your truth. So there's a support there for what you want to do, and who you want to be as a people. And if you've noticed that there has not been a mention of any deity or any outside of generally, for me personally, it's because that's what you bring. You bring God to if God comes, or you may bring science, you may bring God, you may bring Jesus, you may bring Muhammad, you may bring these various, you may bring somebody from the Sikh religion, you may, the Baha'i, when they come, they bring that wisdom with them. And that's when, but we don't all have to be Sikhs or Baha'is or Muslims or Christians. We can be what we are. And that's, to me, the celebration of this particular organization. All right, and now we have, we've got room for questions, or you want, go ahead.
You want to do the last song?
The last song, oh my goodness.
Okay. This is a blessing song for the way, and I'd like to do this 3 times. We'll sing it the first time, then you join us the second time, and then we'll split the group right here and do it in a round. Okay, so Aly will lead this part, and I'll lead the rest of us. Okay, we'll see how this goes. All right, ready?
Yeah.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Let's all sing it together.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may now and please. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Oh, that was
Thank you.
lovely, thank you, yeah.
And usually, after a message is given, or a sermon, or whatever you want to call it, there's always a talk-back period, so that people get to question and give their ideas. So we'd like to have you do that part.
I'd like to, make some comments. Number one, why we're considering doing this.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason we're considering going under the umbrella of this organization is because when we were thinking of being independent, we started to, the more we dug into it, the more we realized how difficult it was going to be to put everything together, as a small group and function as well as we've been functioning. So, what we have found with this organization is that they will support us, as it said, in any way that we want to function. So we don't have to change anything.
No.
We don't have to do anything different. We can call ourselves the name that we picked, which is the Nelson Spiritual Awareness Center. And,
But we have to, a caveat, we have to put UUC underneath it.
well, that's when we're advertising, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Or
I
we
think
can
that
do
was a
whatever we
name.
want
I
with
think
that.
she said a name, yeah,
Yeah.
but it should be in there.
It would be, yeah, we would just have that we're affiliated with the CUC.
Yeah, affiliated, yeah. And it is a large organization. There are 11 in British Columbia, different centers. And across Canada, you remember the figure? It was quite high.
Do you remember to 80?
I can't remember.
It was around 90 or so.
80, 88? I was
Yeah.
thinking
No, I think
80.
it
88,
was
do you
higher,
remember?
wasn't it? 27?
27.
Well, we buried it.
For BC.
No,
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 across
no,
Canada.
11 in BC.
Oh, I see.
That I remember.
I think there's
No.
88
No, I think it was 80, in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah.
Across Canada.
across Canada.
Yeah, I think so. It's a well-known organization. And we can have a tax deductible because that will come in so that we can continue to donate and use it as a tax deduction. So that, and that would be very difficult if we were on our own to do. Plus, we have this support, this big umbrella, where whenever we have a problem and we want to talk it out, we've got counselors, we've got people who can actually give us advice.
Can you give an example of a problem?
No, no.
Let me
yeah.
say something. If we wanted to have, for example, a different place, and we wanted to start a youth program, or we'd have a separate space for the youth people, they would give us advice on what other congregations have done, and how much funding it would take to do that, and, give us some guidelines on how we might approach something like that.
Yeah, good one.
Yeah.
I heard that they got acreage in Fick Creek, wherever that is.
Yeah, well, it's
around.
on Unitarian, it's on Kootenai Lake, just
So,
below
We could
Johnson's
start
Landing.
community garden or do
Well,
a youth camp. or-
Yeah, youth camp would be
Right.
wonderful.
Sandy Beach where the creek comes out. I camped there with the Unitarian Church from Vancouver one year.
Well, there you
There
go.
you go. But is that, as a Unitarian, under the umbrella people, can we submit project to be done there, like?
This is way up north at the end of the lake.
Yeah,
Duncan-
by Johnson's Landing.
Yeah.
Sure, I mean, I'd go with the old, but I'll go with the youth, whatever. We can do stuff over there, or not?
Don't know, that's something we need to find out.
It's, I mean, there's no facilities there. You bring your
No.
own camp, isn't that right?
Exactly.
Right.
Bring your own tent.
Oh, it's right down from Johnson's Landing, right by the
Right.
lake. Oh, yeah.
Right.
been wondering
Yeah, it's the
about
big, the big Fry Creek that comes right
Well,
in
you
there.
know.
that. Right.
That's a big fan of Sam.
Yeah.
get off at Johnson's, where you take off from Johnson, you have to take a boat over to the spit. That's
Do
the
you?
only way to do it, yeah.
Oh,
And when you go camping there, what do you guys do? You sing, have some fire camp with the other Unitarian?
Yeah, we had some Unitarian type discussions.
Oh, they always have discussions, that's a requirement.
What discussion?
It's a joke. It's true, but it is a joke.
Yeah, goes with the territory.
So,
Do you want to speak to the financial?
okay, what I know of the financial is that, whatever we have to do with Unity needs to be completed. And then the financial thing is, they would, we would have to find a way of seeing how many members are regular members or active participants. And then they would ask us to do a certain amount of money, I think it was $93 a year but that would be long after we're established. It would be
2 or 3 years.
it would be at least a year and a half to 2 years, I mean, until we got our own independence, and if we were able to afford it. That was the other caveat. In other words, they would look at your finances and say, well, you're just making your payments. You don't really need to give us that much money. But when you can, if you can, kind of thing. That's as I understand it.
I think she said $25, 25%, that we were supposed to give.
Did she say that
Yeah.
much?
When
Okay.
we first joined up, we gotta give 25%.
Is that per person or
Per person,
25% of what?
of $93.
93, yeah.
What? Now, how
A
much is it
year,
now?
20,
A year.
it would be like $23 a year per person, per member, whatever, however we determine members to be, which, that would be a discussion in and of itself.
And the money is to go to outreach, I think she said.
Right. Okay, yeah,
Outreach.
Outreach program.
okay. Well, they do have a service committee, which is, which is again, a whole nother discussion. So,
Yeah, can I just say a word about the Unitarian Service Committee? When we were in Africa, what we noticed was that a lot of the missionary groups would set themselves up by building a big building, and they'd get cars for everybody, or motorcycles and that sort of stuff. And then they'd go out to the people and try to help them, with what they were thinking of help. What the Unitarian Service Committee did was, in Africa, they would look around to see the existing programs and try to find out what was the grassroots programs, what the people really needed, and contribute to that, whatever little bit that they could do, rather than coming in, and saying, okay, we're gonna do this.
we know what we need.
Yeah.
And they'd come in asking, well, what do you need?
If it's a simple thing of just providing money for school books or blackboard or, that sort of thing, could be a good part of that project.
So, money would go towards some of those kinds of things. One of the things when I was looking at us, who we are, I think we're a welcoming, socially active group of participants enjoying fellowship and spiritual inquiry. And from my understanding, we have outgrown certain limiting belief systems. In other words, whatever armor we might have been, carrying around, or someone is inviting us to carry around, it's not comfortable for us. We don't want it. And we want, we're not adverse to support. We just want something that's more expansive and fits us. It suits us, suits ourselves. So, so the things that may change, if we choose this, is that we'll probably have a committee to help ease us across from where we are now to becoming Unitarians on our own. One of the first things we would do is we would find, they would help us find, should we choose to do this. They would help us find a church under which we would be under their umbrella, and they would be like a sister church to us, a sister congregation, I should say. And this could be Kelowna or
Kamloops.
Kamloops. It could even be
In the US.
it could even be, in Spokane, it also could be, Vancouver, you know, whatever seems to resonate the best with us.
And that would just be for the startup, right?
That would be just
help.
to start,
For a
to help,
mentor.
yeah, pardon?
For a mentor.
For a
Yeah.
mentor, and also, so that we would get tax, credit right away. In other words, you know, the money, because they're already tax affiliated, anybody that needs tax credit, it would go through them until we get our own selves established. Is that clear? Clear enough? Okay. And, it's while we're defining and relating who we are and what we are in the community. And then, right, the name will reflect our connection with the CUC. And then we have more opportunities for different kinds of education and different kinds of support that just wasn't available before.
Like what?
You could learn more about,
There's a minister's program.
yeah, there's a minister's program, there's a lay minister's program.
What's a minister's program and a lay minister's
A
program?
lay minister would be someone who would participate in, who would be trained to participate in marriages, funerals, births, that kind of thing. They would be trained to do things with celebrations.
Is that the chaplain?
Chaplain, lay
Chaplain,
chaplain,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. That's a
Better word.
But these are just down the road kind of projects that we might.
Yeah,
might
but the thing is, anybody could do that. That's, you know, that's.
Yeah, some people call it a reverend and they're post office people and.
Yeah.
So if we're calling a spade, we're really doing that because of this tax business that some people want to have. That's pretty much the only big thing we have encountered and are trying to be.
That's one big thing, yes.
Yeah.
That's
There's
not-
more than one big thing.
Yeah,
we
that's
have
not the
encountered.
only thing,
It's not.
Support.
If there's support,
There's
and
support for that.
yeah, it's really support. In other
What's
words,
support?
Yeah, like having any kind of questions that we may want to, in our organization as we're organizing and not sure of what to do.
Support for whatever we wanna
There's
do.
always, or,
Yes.
for
But
whatever.
I like the idea of openness, like,
Yeah.
just do whatever you want.
Also,
Yeah.
if you have a project, if in other words, you see a need in the community, or especially in the community of the country, I'm gonna say the pipeline for an example, you know, and you feel like this needs attention. So you can, and this is a legitimate thing, it's real. And so you can take it to the CUC and say, this project, I would like your support with this, what can we do?
Support, not to have the pipeline, you mean?
Yes, not to,
Yeah.
not to have.
Not to make it happen.
No.
Be clear.
Yes, support to stop the pipeline, or maybe there's another approach. Maybe there's an approach, look, I've got an idea to give everybody a Tesla battery, so they don't need, you know, the other.
I like the idea of tackling systemic issues to do with, you know, the idea of scarcity.
Yeah,
Because that seems to be like underneath, people say money, but like it's deeper, it's power, and then it's the loss of control, and then the patriarchal unconscious domination. All of those systemic issues, it's good to like tackle those, because that seems to be more spiritual than a lot of the surface stuff we talk about.
yeah, and again, as far as spirituality, I mean, it's hands-on spirituality, it's what's in the world.
Yeah.
That to me is important. I
Yeah,
think.
totally,
I
absolutely.
mean, who, you know, if you need to discuss the three persons of God, is that gonna solve
Right, you gotta be
hunger?
practical.
I mean, not that wouldn't be fascinating, but, you know, is it gonna feed anybody?
Yeah, we gotta tackle all the things at all the levels at the same time.
I think so.
Uh-huh.
And the fact we have 25, 50 members here, but if we tie in to the Unitarian Church, you know, you've got a broad base. And
And
throughout
world.
history, that's one of the things I hope I showed, that, you know, this tiny little group of people have been very important in the whole social aspects and so forth. Michael Czerny, who, civil rights, one of the first civil rights people killed in Alabama, you know, was Unitarian.
And most of the founders of the United States were
Yeah.
Unitarian as well.
Huh.
what, I think it was Riviere who asked about it. I think one of the things is freedom. One of our objections is that
Yeah, freedom.
we're not free to evolve where we want to. There's someone judging whether that's a good, good thing for us to be doing. So we're absolutely free to experiment, to go out in any direction.
Well, this is what's so beautiful, I think, about this that needs to be said, is that the idea of this plants us to a world tree. And Nelson is
Yes.
very unique in his metaphysical approach towards spirituality.
Yes.
So there's a lot, obviously people resonate in this area that are gifted in a lot of metaphysical ways. So having them have potential to connect to the world tree, this is just a container for that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a really good point of view.
I'd like to comment on that. I went to the Unitarian Church in Vancouver for about 15 years, and it was great, but felt like it was so rational.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
spirituality didn't seem to fit in very comfortably. And I got more and more aware of spirituality, so I was left because it wasn't happening there. But I think we've all, evolved since then. The times are changing. The I don't know, I haven't been there lately, but probably we could
well,
have a spirituality and rationality.
Yeah.
absolutely. I think that's really important. I've seen that in some congregations. They're just too pragmatic, too rational. It's like, oh, please, there's more to the world than, what's before your eyes. And that's why it's us. We're not pragmatic, we're spiritual.
In a
And,
pragmatic way.
but we can be pragmatic as well.
I have a question to John, because you had mentioned something to do with Unitarian had a connection with transcendental meditation. Did you say
Well,
that?
the Transcendentalists with Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau and Margaret Fuller.
Transcendentalist, it's a different.
Transcendental.
Not transcendental meditation.
Okay,
No,
I
yeah.
was thinking of Stanislav Graf's type stuff.
No,
Okay.
that was way before that.
I had to clear that up.
Yeah. No, the whole concept of the oversoul and all those concepts that you transcend, which is a big movement.
Yeah, it's the unity, God is one, and we're one, and, and so much of that, and so many faith-based systems, they're hierarchical, and they separate people out, so this hopefully doesn't do that. Any other questions? Any other thoughts?
I'll pass the cards in the basket around
Well, we're
while
gonna do it
people
real
are
quick.
thinking.
You want to vote?
Well, I don't know, do you want to do a vote, or do you want people to think about this and maybe do it next week?
You could do a vote that doesn't
We
have to
could
be
do it, we could do a,
The sampling.
Sample,
We
yeah.
could do
And I
exactly.
think before we
It's true.
do voting, we have to finish off dealing with unity. And it's, we have to know what the final payout is and where we stand with the tax department.
yeah, and this would, yeah, I hear what you're saying. This is not necessarily a formal vote, I guess it would be a show of hands, that people agree.
Okay.
How do you,
Start the process.
yeah, how do you feel about this? I mean, does this sound like a reasonable thing to do?
Doesn't sound like there's much to not like, because they're willing to change. Like, I can see that based on Christian and Jewish, that one day that will change to
Yeah.
include everybody, but right now, especially in Nelson, that's it. And, but they're so flexible, and they're so non-judgmental and not limiting and not, so it sounds like everything wonderful goes.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
It's a big decision to make, and I think this takes time.
I agree.
So
Yeah.
just let it
I
roll.
got the idea that if we even if we vote today and having our vote, then it's still gonna take about
Yeah,
4 or 5 months for things to go through. And
yeah, because we have to
Gonna
take
take
care of our
time.
business.
But they would like to know if
Yeah.
our vote.
Yeah, they want to know what kind of support they can start giving us. That's what they
Why
want.
don't we do a rough vote?
I would appreciate that, yeah. So,
What vote?
just,
Rough.
just a
Nobody's gonna hold
Which
it.
one? Non-committal,
Non-binding.
Consensus.
non-binding, there you go.
Non-binding.
So, do you mind, show of hands, or do we want to
Yeah,
write it
sure,
down?
sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So-
show of hands, a yes or a no?
I will tell you. After you put them up. So if you feel that the Unitarian is a viable option and that's okay with you for today, you know, would you raise your hand, please?
What's that?
Half an hand.
Okay, well it's just, you know, just an idea, and that's good to know.
Well, I think Anne needs to go back to the lady and tell her now that we've.
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
I feel that it's very important for us to complete the past.
I agree.
Yeah.
That this dragging it
Oh,
around
Ron,
would make this very unclean.
Yeah.
I agree.
I really feel that. But this is very important to go
Enough.
karate.
Yeah, enough.
Well, the unity people will help
Also, I
us to
received, yeah.
manage our business too.
Do you know what I would propose?
So-
Since just about everybody's hand went up, or everybody's hand went up, then I think we could say, yes, even if a few people change their mind, we're still in it. So it's.
But the only thing is that we have to know where we stand
Yeah.
Yes.
with unity. We can't,
We do
because we
know,
might be in a
right?
situation which it might be a little bit more tense than what we think of, just
Mhm.
closing the doors and saying, okay, we're gone.
Well, we know we've been in
Well, I don't know,
contact
we've
with
talked in the
unity.
past, and I don't know if we know as much as what we think we know, so.
Anne, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, and,
I received a number of little,
oh, yeah.
booklet or little pamphlets from them, and, they're,
Unitarians.
yeah, the origin, what they believe, your faith, and faith of the humanist, and religious hospitality, faith of a Christian. So I'm going to put them with the books, and if you would like to take any of them home to read, discover more,
Okay.
we'll put them on the table and sign them out like a book, so if anybody else, bring them back and other people can read them.
Okay.
I don't think that'll work. I think people take them home and we won't be able to get at them for 2 or 3 weeks. I think we better let people
Look at them
look
here.
at them
Yeah.
in situ.
That's probably a good idea, and I've got some things you can look at still here too, and as well as the books, don't take them out. But these came from Kelowna. The Kelowna Unitarian, and they need to be returned, but fascinating. There's even a picture in here from, was it the Unitarian,
Oh, the wilderness
the
camp.
wilderness camp?
Yeah.
One comment,
Yeah,
we have a fellow here that have been a Unitarian. I appreciate that you wanting us to steer away from the rigidity and the,
yes,
yeah, so let's keep that in mind in a big way.
yeah. And
Yeah.
John and I also heard from you.
Yeah, and you go from church to church, it's so.
So different.
When we went to Boston, the King's Chapel there, I mean, everybody sits in pews and the minister is about 20 feet higher than everybody else.
There
you
was
know.
a minister.
Oh, yeah, and he had the robes and the whole, I mean, it was.
Unitarian.
It was Unitarian,
Oh, yeah,
the first
Unitarian.
So
Unitarian.
we
so-
get our own flavor to the
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah.
You can have a fellowship.
So I mean,
thing.
they had a pew and they directed the pew,
You wanna talk about
the pew door and
extraterrestrial
you'd slide in and, I mean, it
There's all these,
was.
there's all these cultures that roll into worship extraterrestrial, so what do you think about that?
You've been sharing
I
in
don't.
the crowd something about those messages. If we can have only one message and contemplate on it, that I myself, half of this I don't understand the English or the loudness or softness of it, I just let it go. But it would be good to choose only one thing at a time, to discuss it with Michael. you know, I would be for it. Not to have so many of them. It is just, you cannot absorb it.
Yeah,
It's too much.
that's good.
Yeah.
It is just too, it is like a huge goulash. And so I do not feel that this will be really very strong. We would really have it within ourselves.
Mm.
Oh, okay, I'm missing this, I don't understand.
Me neither.
Well,
What-
instead of having all the cards go out and everybody reading one, so forth, just have one or two. that would
Focus on one
focus
thing
on-
at a time.
Oh, them little
And
cards.
focus
Yeah,
on it.
yeah.
You
Focus
mean
on
these
these
cards?
No, no,
yeah,
no.
yeah.
What?
Oh, no.
I hardly can have of it even here.
But maybe everybody else may.
Whatever, I don't know. I
Which
was
card are we
hearing that.
talking about?
The cards that are
Oh, I
going
think
out
she's
there.
talking about.
Yeah.
No, it's really nice to hear each message is what I feel.
Yeah, and sometimes the one
It's
we
very
put, we
personal.
pull out,
Yes,
Yeah.
personal.
it's the divine
This
will.
was only
Just
suggestion.
the one we put
You
out.
can contemplate on it.
Okay.
How much you can absorb it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm reminded of with the Unitarian idea is that sticker everybody's got in town on their car called coevolution, and it's got all the different symbols.
yeah.
That's what I'm reminded of.
That's,
I love that
yeah.
symbol.
Yeah, they put that out.
That's the unit. that's
Oh,
the
Unitarian does
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Oh, okay, well, very, I didn't even know. That's cool. All the religions of the world as one. All the Nelsonites have that.
Yeah, it says coevolution, but it's all made with all the religious symbols.
So that there is an actual sticker.
Yeah, there is.
Wow.
It's official.
Is that right?
Wow.
Like a fish.
I said, is that right?
Yeah, that's right,
There's an
that's right. I
actual
see it a
sticker.
lot on
Yeah.
the people's cars in
Oh,
town,
yeah,
right?
especially here, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
coevolution.
And that's a Unitarian?
Coevolution is written, and all the symbols that spell coevolution are all the universal
It was
religions.
put out by Unitarians as far as I know.
Yeah, the C is like the
Half moon.
Yeah.
half moon
Yeah.
for Israel.
Yeah.
The new moon
It's
of
coexist, is
Islam.
what it says.
Coexist, or coevolution. Actually,
Oh, maybe it's
Coexist.
coexist. Okay.
Coexist.
Coexist, that's what it is. And then the
You get the
T,
eggs for-
and the T is a cross. and-
So beautiful.
Oh, man.
Okay with a book.
Well, sorry.